The snow was falling thick and silent over Aspen that night, blanketing the mountain lodge in a shimmer of white that looked like something out of a postcard. For most people, the annual Henderson Christmas gathering was the social highlight of the season, an event dripping with luxury, champagne, and the kind of effortless wealth my family loved to parade. For me, it was something else entirely. I stood in the shadows of the grand lobby, the marble floor cold beneath my heels, smoothing the sleeve of my simple black sweater as if that gesture could shield me from the spectacle unfolding across the room. The lodge was alive with the hum of laughter, the clinking of crystal, the rustle of gowns. My family hadn't noticed me yet, and so I watched them through the vast windows that framed the party like a snow globe. Candles glowed against gold-plated sconces, and imported poinsettias spilled from glass vases. Everything was orchestrated to perfection, and, of course, Meline was at the center of it. My older sister, 35, perfectly manicured, perfectly poised, moved among the guests like she owned the world. A designer scarf draped artfully around her neck, she paused now and then to adjust decorations or to give direction to the staff. People said she had a gift for elegance, for making events feel magical. What they didn't say was that she lived for this. The applause, the admiration, the whispered envy. "Did you hear from Emily?" I caught my Aunt Sarah's voice, crisp as the winter air outside. She hovered near the champagne table, watching my mother arrange a line of crystal flutes. My mother waved a hand dismissively, her jeweled bracelet catching the light. "Oh, she won't be joining us. The hotels are all booked, you know. We told her months ago to make reservations, but she was too busy with her." She tilted her head in mock thought. "What does she call it again? Hospitality consulting." A ripple of polite laughter spread among the relatives. If only they knew. "Poor Emily," Meline chimed in, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. She straightened the scarf around her neck, the kind of absent gesture that shouted superiority. "Still playing hotelier while we enjoy the presidential suite at Aspen Lodge." My father chuckled, sipping his scotch like it was an extension of his authority. "She could have been part of the family business," he said, his voice carrying just enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Instead of chasing pipe dreams." Pipe dreams. That was what they had called it when I'd first turned away from the Henderson real estate empire. I was supposed to have joined them, learned the trade, sat in boardrooms, shaken hands with developers. But I'd wanted something different. Something more human than land deals and contracts. At least that was what I told them. The truth was far larger, far more daring. For 5 years, I'd hidden the truth of who I'd become. While they scoffed at my consulting, I was quietly building something that none of them could have imagined. An empire born not from inherited wealth but from vision, strategy, and sheer determination. Elite Hotels. A name whispered now in hushed tones across boardrooms in New York, London, Dubai. The world's most exclusive luxury chain, built from scratch, piece by piece, through shell companies that disguised my involvement. Each property I acquired was a brick in the fortress I was building. Each contract signed, each sleepless night spent reviewing plans was a step closer to the vision I refused to let die. And tonight, at midnight, the final cornerstone would fall into place. My phone buzzed against my palm, the soft vibration grounding me amid the glitter of the lodge. I glanced down. A message from Mio, my assistant. "Acquisition of Aspen Lodge complete. Transfer finalizes at midnight." My lips curved into the faintest smile. Of course, my family didn't know. To them, I was still the disappointment, the girl who hadn't booked a room, the sister destined to spend Christmas in some budget motel at the edge of town. I lifted my eyes back to the room. My mother's voice cut through the air again, sharp and dismissive. "At least she's employed. Though managing budget hotels is hardly a career." Meline laughed, a soft, cruel sound that prickled against my skin. "She'll probably spend Christmas in one of her little motels." That was the thing about my family. Their wealth wasn't enough. They needed to define themselves by who they were better than. And I had been their favorite target. Checked my watch. 2 minutes to midnight. They were still laughing when I stepped forward at last, the sound of my heels clicking against the marble like a drumbeat. Conversations faltered, heads turned, and for the first time that evening, silence descended. "Actually," I said, letting the word linger in the charged air, "I have accommodations arranged." "Emily!" My mother's head snapped up, her face pinched in surprise. "How did you get in here?" I held her gaze, steady, unshaken. "I own the building." The timing couldn't have been better. Right then, the lobby's massive television screens flickered, the breaking news banner blazing across the bottom. Elite Hotels acquires luxury portfolio in $8 billion deal. CEO Emily Henderson expands empire to over 100 properties worldwide, including Aspen Lodge. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father's hand stilled on his scotch glass. Meline's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble with a sound that seemed to echo in the stunned silence. I lifted my phone to my ear. "Margaret," I said to my assistant, my voice deliberately calm, "please cancel the Henderson family's presidential suite access. Effective immediately." "That's impossible," my mother sputtered, her cheeks flushing red. "This is the most exclusive resort in Aspen. You might want to check the ownership transfer," I suggested mildly. "As of midnight, Elite Hotels owns this property. In fact, we own every luxury hotel in Aspen." "Elite Hotels," my father whispered, the weight of recognition sinking in. "The chain that's revolutionizing luxury hospitality." "My little hospitality consulting project," I confirmed. "Though I suppose managing budget hotels isn't as impressive as real estate development." The screens now displayed a photo of me, flanked by Elite Hotels' iconic gold crest, as reporters announced the historic acquisition. Around me, whispers filled the room. Henderson's daughter, CEO of Elite. An $8 billion empire. Meline frantically pulled out her phone, scrolling through the headlines. Her face drained of color as she read, "World's youngest female hotelier to build $8 billion empire in secrecy." My mother clutched her pearls. "Your budget hotels were just a cover," I said softly. "A very profitable cover. While you were mocking my career choice, I was building the most successful luxury hotel chain in the world." The cameras in the lobby captured every word, flashing my face across the globe as breaking news. Guests turned to me with newfound awe. For once, I wasn't the black sheep. I was the queen. I let the silence stretch, savoring the shift in the room, the sudden reversal of power, the dawning realization etched across my family's faces. And then, with a final, measured smile, I spoke. "Unfortunately, we have a strict policy at Elite Hotels. Guests who treat hospitality workers as beneath them are not welcome. Consider your suite cancelled." The silence was after my announcement stretched on so long it felt like time itself had frozen. Lodge in a shimmer of white that looked like something out of a postcard. The fire crackled in the stone hearth. The annual Henderson Christmas gathering was the social highlight of the season. Her jeweled fingers trembling against her pearls, and the kind of effortless wealth my family loved dangerously in his hand. For me, it was something else entirely. Sloshing against the rim. I stood in the shadows of the grand lobby, like she was looking at a ghost. Floor cold, her mouth slightly open, smoothing the sleeve of my simple black sweater, that confirmed what she wished could shield me from the spectacle. For years, I had been invisible to them. The lodge was alive with the hum of laughter. Pitted. The clinking of every eye in that golden room was fixed on me. My family hadn't noticed me yet, and so I watched them through the vast windows that framed the party like a snow globe. A hint of fear. Candles glowed against gold-plated sconces. I thought it would feel like triumph, like fireworks exploding in my chest. Everything was orchestrated to perfection. Standing there with my family gaping at me as if I was at the center of it. All I felt was steady, calm, 35, perfectly manicured. Finally, my father found his voice. Moved among the guests like she owned the world, he said. A designer scarf draped artfully around her neck. Grab. She paused now and then to adjust decorations. I took a step to give direction to the staff. Heels sharp against the marble. People said she had a gift for elegance. The transfer papers were signed 3 hours ago. You can call the lawyers if you like. Was that she lived for this. I imagine they'll be too busy pouring champagne over at Elite's headquarters. Did you hear from his Emily? Jaw clenched. I caught my Aunt Sarah's voice when I was a teenager, refusing to follow his rules. She hovered near the champagne empire of this watching my mother arrange a line of crystal foods. I tilted my head. My mother waved a hand dismissively. I've been running it for 5 years, catching the light. Quietly. Oh, she won't be joining successfully. Us. The hotels are all booked. You've been busy selling parcels of land. We told her months ago to make reservations. I've been reimagining the very definition of luxury hospitality. She tilted her head in mock thought. The room buzzed with whispers. What does she call it again? Guests hospitality consulting, eager to catch every word. A ripple of polite laughter. My family's humiliation was unfolding live. If only they knew. And no one wanted Emily to miss a second. Meline chimed in. Meline finally found her tongue with mock sympathy. Though her voice trembled. She straightened the scarf around her neck. Tell us? The kind of absent gesture that shouted superiority. Tell you. Still playing hotelier while we enjoy the presidential suite. Claim credit for what I built. My father wanted to hear about my dreams unless like it was an extension of his authority. My mother bristled. She could have been part of the family business. We supported you. His voice carrying just enough for everyone nearby to hear. Steady but fierce. Instead of chasing, you called my career a joke. Pipe dreams. You told me I'd end up broke. That was what they had called it when I'd first turned away from the Henderson real estate empire. Do you know what it's like to have your own family? I was supposed to have joined your ambition, learned the trade, to be treated like the outsider, shaken hands with holiday table. But I'd wanted something different, and for once, something more human none of them had deals and contracts. My father's scowl that was what I told them. So slightly. The truth was far larger, of guilt far more daring. But my mother only tightened her lips. I'd hidden the truth of who I'd become. Eyes burned while they scoffed at my consulting. I lifted my phone again. I was quietly building something that none of them could have imagined. Enough for the entire room to hear. An empire born not from inherited wealth, but from vision. The Hendersons are no longer authorized for the presidential suite. Their belongings should be packed and held in the lobby until further notice. London, Dubai. My mother gasped. The world's most exclusive luxury chain, as if to steady herself. From scratch, piece by piece. Dare. Through shell companies that disguised my involvement. This hotel doesn't tolerate property I acquired was a brick in the fortress I was building. Each contract signs, yes. Each sleepless night taught me the value of a standard was a step closer to the vision I refused to let die. Negotiable. And tonight, a murmur of approval spread through the cornerstone would fall into place. I caught the eye of one of the servers. My phone buzzed against my palm. Someone who had spent years being snapped at and ordered around me amid the glitter of the lodge. For the first time, he looked at me not with pity, a message from but with gratitude. My assistant. Meline's acquisition of Aspen Lodge complete. You're enjoying this, transfer aren't you? Finalizes watching at midnight. This isn't about success. Into the faintest smile. This is about revenge. Of course, my family didn't know. I stepped closer until we were eye to eye. The disappointment. My sister, the girl who had always been the golden one. The sister destined to spend Christmas in some budget motel at the edge while I stood in the shadows. I lifted my eyes back to the revenge. My mother's voice cut through the air again. Revenge would be buying every property you've ever dreamed of managing and shutting you out. Though managing budget hotels is the way you humiliated me. Meline laughed, a soft, cruel sound that prickled against my flashing my name, she'll my probably photo, my empire. Christmas in one of her little motels. Standing in my truth. That was the thing about my family. Her lips their wealth wasn't into a sneer. They needed to define themselves by who they were. No matter how much money you make, and I had been their favorite target. Always be the outsider. Check my watch. I let her words hang in the air. Once they were still laughing when I stepped forward. Tonight, at last. They rolled off me like snowflakes on glass. Clicking against the marble then like a drum beat. Being the outsider. Conversations faltered, heads turned. Because the outsider built an empire while the insiders got comfortable. Actually, my father slammed the word linger down onto the nearest table. I have accommodations like a gunshot. Emily, my mother's head has sacrificed everything to maintain our reputation. How did you get in here through the mud with this circus? I held her gaze, your reputation. I arched a brow. Building. You mean the timing couldn't have been better that crushes right anyone who doesn't fit its massive mold. Television screens a family flickered. More concerned the with appearances than blazing love. Across the bottom. His face reddened. Elite Hotels acquires luxury portfolio in $8 billion and I took deal. None of them. CEO Emily Henderson expands because I refuse to be shaped into your worldwide. I chose my own Aspen Lodge, and look where it led me. Gasps rippled the air between us was charged. My father's hand decades of unspoken tension bursting to the surface. Champagne guests slipped from her fingers, shattering against the drama with a sound that seemed to echo in the cameras clicked. I lifted my phone to my ear. Across tabloids by morning, I said to my assistant, and then came my voice deliberately I hadn't expected. Please cancel the Henderson family's presidential suite forward. She's right. Immediately, every head turned. That's impossible. Sarah, the soft-spoken one, her cheeks flushing red. My father's sister, who rarely challenged him. Richard,
you might want
she
to check
said,
the ownership
her voice
transfer.
firmer than I'd
I
ever
suggested
heard it.
mildly.
You belittled
As
her
of
every
midnight,
step of the way.
Elite Hotels
You
owns
mocked
this
her when she
property.
needed
In
encouragement.
fact, we own
You
every
shut her out
luxury
when she
hotel
only
in
wanted
Aspen.
belonging.
Elite
And
Hotels.
still she rose. My
If
father
anything,
whispered,
we should
the
be
weight
ashamed.
of recognition
My
sinking
father
in.
stared at
The
her as
chain
though
that's
she'd betrayed him.
revolutionizing
But
luxury
Sarah didn't
hospitality.
Her
My
words
little
cracked something
hospitality
open in the
consulting
room.
project.
For the first
I
time, the
confirmed.
balance of power
Though I
shifted.
suppose
Not
managing
just
budget
between me and my
hotels
family,
isn't
but
as
within the
impressive
family
as
itself.
real estate development.
Meline looked around.
The screens now
desperate
displayed
for
a photo
allies,
of me,
but found none.
flanked by Elite
My mother's
Hotels'
lips
iconic
pressed
gold
tight.
crest.
Her pride
As
too thick
reporters
to let her
announced the
admit
historic
fault.
acquisition,
My father's
around
silence
me
was louder
whispers
than
filled
his
the room.
anger.
Henderson's
breathed
daughter,
deeply,
CEO of
the weight
Elite,
of years
an
lifting
$8
from my
billion
shoulders.
empire.
For once,
Meline
I wasn't the
frantically
outcast.
pulled out her phone.
I was the one holding
scrolling
the
through the
cards.
headlines.
Tonight, her
I
face
said,
drained
my
of
voice
color as she
carrying
read.
through the hushed room.
World's youngest
the world
female
learned my
hotelier
name,
to build
not
$8 billion
as the Henderson
empire in
disappointment.
My
Not
mother
as the
clutched her
forgotten
pearls.
daughter,
But as
budget
Emily
hotels.
Henderson, founder
We're
and
just a
CEO
cover,
of Elite
I
Hotels.
said softly.
And
A
whether
very
you choose to
profitable
accept
cover
it or not,
while you were
that
mocking
truth
my
isn't
career
going
choice.
away.
I
I
was
turned
building
then,
the most
walking
successful
toward the
luxury
grand
hotel
staircase
chain
as
in the
reporters
world.
pressed forward.
The cameras in the
Their
lobby
cameras
captured
flashing.
every word.
My family
Flashing my
remained
face
rooted
across
where they
the globe
stood,
as breaking news.
stripped of their control.
Guests turned
their
to me with
authority,
newfound
their
awe.
certainty. For
At the
once,
top of the
I
stairs,
wasn't the
I
black
paused,
sheep, looking down
I was
at them
the
one
queen.
last time. I let the
This
silence
Christmas,
stretch,
I
savoring
said,
the shift
shift
in the room.
slow, deliberate,
The sudden
final,
reversal of power
isn't about the
dawning
Henderson
realization
etched
it's
across
about
my
mine.
family's faces.
The room erupted
and then,
in a mix
with
of
a final
applause and
measured
gasps
smile,
as I
I
disappeared
spoke.
into the private
Unfortunately,
lounge.
we have a
leaving
strict
behind a
policy
family who
at
had
Elite
never seen me
Hotels
until now.
Guests who
For the
treat
first time in my
hospitality
life,
workers as
I
beneath
didn't feel
them
like
are
I
not
was
welcome.
stepping out of their shadow.
Consider your sweet
I felt like I was
cancelled.
standing fully, finally, in my light.
The
The
applause
applause
and
and
whispers
whispers
from
from
the
the
lounge
lounge
still
over Aspen
echoed
that
in my
night.
ears long
Blanketing
after I
the
left
mountain
the main
lodge
hall.
in a shimmer of
I
white
sank
that
into the
looked like
leather
something out of
armchair
a
near the
postcard.
fireplace.
For most
The
people,
warmth
the
of the
annual
flames
Henderson
washing
Christmas
over me.
gathering was the
My
social
phone
highlight
kept
of the
buzzing with
season.
notifications,
An event dripping with
breaking
luxury
news alerts,
champagne,
congratulatory
and the kind
messages
of effortless
from
wealth my
investors,
family loved to
and
parade.
interview requests
For
from
me,
networks
it was something
around the
else
world.
entirely.
I should have felt
I stood in the
unstoppable,
shadows of the grand
victorious.
lobby. The marble
The girl
floor
they once
cold beneath
mocked
my
had
heels,
become the woman they could no
smoothing the
longer
sleeve
ignore.
of my simple black
But
sweater,
as I scrolled
as if
through
that
the
gesture could
headlines,
shield me from
something
the spectacle
inside me
unfolding
felt
across
strangely
the room.
hollow.
The lodge
Yes,
was
I had
alive
proven
with
my
the hum of
family wrong.
laughter.
Yes,
the
I
clinking
had
of
built
crystal,
something
the rustle of
extraordinary.
gowns.
Yet the
My
look on
family
Meline's
hadn't
face
noticed as
me
the
yet.
champagne flute
And so I
shattered.
watched them
The
through the
stunned
vast
silence
windows
in my
that
father's
framed the
eyes.
party like a
The
snow
brittle
globe.
pride in my mother's
Candles
trembling
glowed
hands.
against
They
gold-plated
lingered in my
sconces,
mind like
and
ghosts.
imported
They weren't
poinsettias
just
spilled from
humiliated.
glass vases.
They were broken.
Everything was
It didn't take
orchestrated to
long
perfection,
before the inevitable
and
knock
of course
sounded at the
Meline
door.
was at the center
I
of
already
it.
knew who
My
it would
older
be.
sister,
Meline
35,
burst into the
perfectly
room
manicured,
without waiting
perfectly
for permission.
poised.
Her
Moved
cheeks
among
were
the
flushed
guests,
like
eyes
she owned
wet.
the world.
Her
A
composure
designer
cracked
scarf
for the first
draped
time in
artfully
years.
around her neck.
You've ruined
She paused
everything,
now and
she
then to
spat,
adjust
slamming the door
decorations or
behind
to give
her.
direction to
Do
the
you have
staff.
any idea
People
what you've
said
done
she had
to
a
us?
gift for elegance.
I rose slowly,
for making
meeting
events
her
feel
fury with
magical.
calm.
What
To
they didn't
us,
say was that
or
she
to the
lived for
image
this.
you've spent your
The
whole
applause,
life
the
protecting.
admiration, the
You
whispered
humiliated
envy.
us
Did
in
you
front
hear
of
from
everyone.
Emily?
Father
I
can't
caught my
show
Aunt
his
Sarah's
face
in
voice.
Aspen again,
Crisp as the
Mother
winter
is
air
beside
outside.
herself. She
And me.
hovered near the
Do
champagne
you know what
table,
it feels like to
watching
discover
my
little
sister
sister has been secretly running an empire
My
while
mother
I was?
waved a hand dismissively.
Her voice broke. Her
While I
jeweled
was busy
bracelet catching the
organizing
light.
galas and
Oh,
pretending
she
it
won't
meant
be joining
something.
us.
For the
The
first time
hotels
I
are
saw
all
it.
booked, you know.
Not arrogance.
We told her months
not
ago
cruelty,
to make reservations,
but fear.
But she was
Fear
too
that
busy
she was
with
no
her.
longer the golden
She
one.
tilted her
That
head
the
in mock
pedestal she
thought.
had lived on
What
had
does she
crumbled
call it
beneath
again?
her feet.
Hospitality
my tone.
consulting.
Meline, a ripple of polite
You mocked me
laughter
for
spread
years.
among the relatives.
Called my dreams
If only
silly.
they knew.
Dismissed
Poor
me
Emily.
at every turn.
Meline chimed
Do you
in,
know what
her
that
tone
did to me?
dripping with mock
Her
sympathy.
eyes flicked up.
She straightened
Guilt
the scarf
flickering
around her
across
neck.
them.
The kind
We
of
thought-
absent gesture
we
that
thought you'd
shouted
never amount amount to anything. Still
I
playing
exhaled,
hotelier
a bitter
while
laugh
we enjoy
escaping.
the presidential suite
And yet,
at
despite
Aspen
everything,
Lodge.
I don't
My
feel
father
joy
seeing
chuckled,
you like this.
sipping his
Maybe I
scotch
thought
like
I
it was
would,
an
but I
extension
don't.
of his authority.
Because all I ever
She
wanted
could have been
wasn't
part of the
revenge.
family business.
It was
he
respect
said. And love.
His voice
From
carrying
my
just
own
enough for
family.
everyone nearby
Her anger
to hear.
faltered. Instead of
Replaced by
chasing pipe
silence.
dreams.
The next
Pipe
day,
dreams.
I met my father
That was
in
what
the
they had
lounge.
called it
when I'd first
He
turned
was
away
seated
from
by
the
the window,
Henderson real
a glass
estate
of
empire,
scotch
untouched
I
in
was
his
supposed to
hand,
have joined them,
staring out
learned
at the
the
snowy
trade,
mountains.
sat in boardrooms,
You
shaken hands
blindsided
with
me,
developers,
he said
but
without
I'd wanted
looking at
something
me.
different.
His
Something
voice
more
was quieter
human
than
than
land
land
deals
deals
and contracts.
less thunder,
At least
more
that
gravel.
was what I told them.
I had to.
The truth
I
was
replied.
far larger.
If I
far
told
more
you,
daring.
you would have tried
tried to take control.
5 years,
or
I'd
worse,
hidden the truth of
dismiss
who
me
I'd
again.
become.
While they scoffed
He
at my
finally
consulting,
turned his gaze toward
I was
me.
quietly building
For the first
something
time
that none
in
of them
years,
could have imagined.
there was no anger
an
in his
empire born
eyes,
not from
only
inherited
something
wealth
that
but from
looked
vision,
tired.
strategy,
You're
and
stronger
sheer
than I gave you
determination.
credit for,
Elite Hotels,
he admitted.
A name
His
whispered
words
now
slow,
in hushed
reluctant,
tones across
and
boardrooms
smarter.
in New York,
I
London,
built my
Dubai.
empire with the
The
help of
world's
my
most
father,
exclusive
and
luxury
his father
chain,
before him.
built from scratch,
You built yours
piece
alone.
by piece.
That
Through
takes
shell
guts.
companies that
The
disguised my
compliment,
involvement.
rare and gruff,
Each
startled
property
me.
I acquired
But,
was a brick
he added,
in the
his
fortress
voice
I was
sharpening.
building.
Humiliating
Each contract
your own
signed,
family in public,
each sleepless
that was
night spent
beneath you.
reviewing plans
Power
was a step
means
closer
nothing
to the
if you
vision
don't
I
wield it
refused
with
to let
dignity.
die.
And
And
tonight,
tonight, at midnight,
his words hit
the
harder
final
than I
cornerstone would
expected.
fall into place.
So dignity
My
means
phone
pretending,
buzzed against my
means
palm,
letting you
the
sneer
soft
at me
vibration
forever.
grounding me
No,
amid the glitter
he
of the
said
lodge.
firmly.
I glanced
Dignity
down.
means rising
A message
above,
from Mio, my
showing
assistant.
the world you are better.
Acquisition of
not by
Aspen
tearing
Lodge
others
complete,
down,
but by standing
transfer
tall.
finalizes
The
at
silence
midnight.
stretched between
My
us,
lips curved into
heavy
the
but
faintest
not hostile.
smile.
Of
For
course,
once,
my
I
family
wondered if
didn't
he
know.
truly saw me.
To them, I was
not
still
the
the
disappointment,
disappointment,
not the rebel,
the girl
but
who
his
hadn't
daughter.
booked a room.
Later,
The
when I
sister
passed
destined
through the
to
hallway,
spend Christmas in
I
some
found my
budget
mother
motel
sitting
at the edge of
stiffly
town.
on a chaise
I
lounge,
lifted my
staring
eyes
at
back
the
to the
fire.
room.
Her
My
pearls
mother's
were gone,
voice
her
cut through the
makeup
air again,
smudged.
sharp
She
and
didn't look at
dismissive.
me when she spoke.
At least she's employed.
Do you know how hard
Though
it is to
managing
watch your
budget
children
hotels
defy
is
you?
hardly a
To
career.
realize they don't
Meline
need you
laughed,
anymore.
a soft,
I
cruel
hesitated,
sound that
then
prickled
sat
against my
across from
skin.
her.
She'll
Do you know how
probably
hard
spend
it is to
Christmas
spend your
in
whole
one of her
life
little
trying to earn your
motels.
mother's approval
That was the
and
thing
never
about
getting
my
it?
family.
Her eyes
Their wealth
flicked up
wasn't
to mine.
enough.
Brimming
They
with
needed to
tears,
define
she
themselves
refused
by
let
who they
fall.
were better than.
We only
And I
wanted
had
the
been their
best for
favorite
you.
target.
No,
Check
I
my
said
watch.
gently.
2 minutes
You
to
wanted the
midnight.
best for your image.
They were still laughing
Not
when I
for
stepped
me.
forward at last.
She flinched as
The
though I
sound
had
of my
struck her.
heels clicking
In
against
that
the
moment,
marble
I
like a drumbeat.
realized something.
Conversations
My mother's
faltered,
pride wasn't
heads
strength.
turned.
'Twas
And for the
armor.
first time that
Armor
evening,
so thick
silence
she had
descended.
forgotten how to take it off.
Actually, I
By
said,
the end of the
letting
week,
the word
the
linger
world
in the
knew my
charged
story.
air.
I have
Reporters flooded
accommodations
Aspen.
arranged.
Headlines
Emily,
screamed of the Henderson
my mother's
feud,
head snapped up,
and investors
her face
clamored
pinched
for
in
interviews.
surprise.
Some
How
praised
did
me
you
as
get
a
in
visionary.
here? I held
Others
her
painted
gaze,
me as a
steady,
ruthless
unshaken.
dog who had publicly
I owned the
destroyed her
building.
family.
The timing
The truth, I
couldn't have been
realized,
better.
lay somewhere in
Right
between.
then, the
At a
lobby's
press
massive
conference,
television
I was
screens
asked directly,
flickered.
The
Do you
breaking
feel
news
proud of
banner blazing
humiliating your
across the
family
bottom.
like this?
Elite Hotels
paused,
acquires
the
luxury
cameras flashing,
portfolio
the
in
microphones
$8 billion
hovering.
deal.
And then I
CEO
said
Emily
the words
Henderson
that
expands
surprised even
empire
me.
to over 100
No,
properties
I don't
worldwide.
feel proud of the way
including
it happened.
Aspen Lodge.
My family
Gasps
underestimated me,
rippled
yes.
through the crowd.
They mocked me,
My
yes.
father's hand
But at the end of the
stilled on his
day,
Scotch
they are
glass.
still my family.
Meline
What I
champagne
feel
flute
isn't
slipped from her
pride in their
fingers,
humiliation.
shattering against
What
the
I
marble
feel
with
is
a sound
gratitude
that seemed
for the
to
doubt
echo
that
in the
fueled
stunned
me.
silence.
For the resistance
I
that
lifted my
sharpened
phone
me.
to my ear.
And for the love
Margaret,
I still hope we
I
can
said to my
rebuild.
assistant,
The
my
room
voice
went
deliberately
silent.
calm.
And for the
Please
first time
cancel
I
the
felt
Henderson
something
family's
shift.
presidential
Not
suite
in the
access.
headlines, but inside
Effective
me.
immediately.
On Christmas Eve,
That's
I
impossible,
invited them to
my
a
mother
private
sputtered,
dinner in
her
the grand
cheeks
dining
flushing
hall
red.
of the lodge.
This is the
No
most
cameras,
exclusive
no reporters,
resort in
no
Aspen.
investors.
You might
Just
want
us.
to check
They
the
arrived
ownership
stiff,
transfer.
wary, defensive.
I suggested mildly.
My father in his
As
pressed
of midnight,
suit,
my
Elite
mother clutching her
Hotels
shawl,
owns this property.
Meline looking like
In
she
fact,
hadn't slept
we
in
own
days.
every luxury
The
hotel
table was
in
set
Aspen.
with crystal and
Elite
silver.
Hotels.
The candles
My father
flickering
whispered.
softly. The weight
For a
of
long
recognition
time, none of us
sinking in.
spoke.
The chain
Finally,
that's
I broke the
revolutionizing
silence.
luxury
I didn't bring you
hospitality.
here to gloat.
My little
I brought
hospitality
you here
consulting
because I don't
project.
want us to be
I
strangers
confirmed.
anymore.
Though I
My
suppose
father
managing
cleared
budget
his throat.
hotels isn't
You've
as
changed.
impressive as real
No,
estate development.
I corrected
The
gently.
screens now displayed
I've
a
always
photo
been
of me,
this way.
flanked
You
by
just
Elite
never
Hotels'
bothered to
iconic
see
gold
it.
crest.
Meline's
As
eyes
reporters
glistened.
announced the historic
You were
acquisition.
supposed to fail.
Around me,
That's what we
whispers
told
filled the room.
ourselves.
That's how we
Henderson's daughter,
justified
CEO of
treating you
Elite,
the way we
an
did.
$8 billion
And now,
empire.
it's me who feels
Meline
small.
frantically pulled
I
out her
reached
phone,
across the table,
scrolling
placing
through the
my
headlines.
hand over hers.
Her face
You
drained
don't
of color
have to.
as she read.
My success
World's
doesn't
youngest
diminish
female
you,
hotelier
failure
line.
to build
It
$8
never
billion
did.
empire in
Her
secrecy.
lips trembled.
My mother
Slowly
clutched
she
her
nodded.
pearls. Then I
Your
turned to my
budget
mother.
hotels.
She looked at
We're
me,
just a
her
cover,
eyes softer
I said
now,
softly.
less guarded.
A very
Maybe I
profitable
didn't know how
cover.
to love you the
While
way
you were
needed,
mocking my
she
career
whispered.
choice.
Tears
I was
pricked
building
at
the
my
most
eyes.
successful luxury
Maybe I
hotel
didn't know
chain
how
in the
to
world.
forgive.
The
But
cameras
we
in the
can
lobby
start
captured
now.
every word.
For the first time in
Flashing my
decades,
face
my
across
family
the
and I
globe
ate
is
a meal
breaking
together
news.
without insult.
Guests turned to
without
me with
comparisons,
newfound awe.
without walls.
For once,
just
I
four
wasn't
people,
the black
flawed,
sheep.
wounded,
I was
but
the
trying.
queen.
That night, as I looked around the table,
savoring the shift
I
in the room,
realized something
the sudden
profound.
reversal of power.
Humility wasn't
The
about
dawning
lowering
realization
myself.
etched across my
It wasn't
family's
about
faces.
pretending to be
And
less
then,
than
with
what
a
I had
final
become.
measured smile,
Humility
I
was
spoke.
about recognizing that power
we
meant
have a
nothing
strict
if it didn't
policy
feel as
at
much as
elite
it built.
hotels.
That
Guests
triumph
who
meant
treat
little
hospitality
if it left
workers
only
as
disbeneath
beneath
them
them in its
are
wake.
not welcome.
Yes, I had
Consider
won.
your sweet
Yes, I had
cancelled.
proven them wrong.
But true victory wasn't in their humiliation. It was in forgiveness. In the chance to rewrite our story together. Because no empire, no matter how vast, could replace the simple, fragile, irreplaceable bond of family. And that was the lesson I never expected to learn. Humility not from failure but from success. The snow fell gently outside the Aspen over Aspen that night, frosting the pine trees like powdered sugar. In a shimmer of white that looked like something out of a postcard. The fire burned low in the grand hearth. For most people, the annual Henderson Christmas gathering was the social highlight of the season. Christmas morning had arrived, an event quietly, dripping with luxury, without the usual drama and the kind of effortless wealth my family loved to parade. Instead, there was stillness. For me, it was something else entirely. I stood in the shadows of the grand lobby. Not as a battlefield, cold beneath not as my a stage, but as a family. Smoothing the sleeve of my simple black sweater, that was as healing. If that gesture could shield me. And as I woke on Christmas morning to the sight of sunlight scattering across the lodge was alive with the hum of laughter. I realized something. The clinking of crystal, the real work was only just beginning. My family hadn't noticed me yet. And so I watched them through the vast windows that framed headlines the party like a snow globe. Reporters turned their attention to the next gold-plated sconces, and elite hotels returned to being what I had always intended it to be, vases. A sanctuary of excellence. Was orchestrated to perfection. But within the walls of Aspen Lodge, of course, Meline was at the center far more important was my older sister. I found my father in the study one morning, perfectly pouring over the Wall Street Journal, moved among the guests like she owned the world. He didn't look up when I entered. A designer scarf, but his voice was softer than I had ever heard it. She paused now and then to some investors yesterday, or to give direction to the staff. They're impressed People by said you. She had a gift they for elegance, you're a visionary, for making events feel magical. Leaning what they didn't say was that she lived for this. The That's applause, not what the you used to call me. The whispered envy. He lowered the paper, hear from his Emily? Sharp blue eyes I caught my Aunt Sarah's voice. I was wrong. Crisp as the winter air outside. So simple, so she hovered near the champagne in the air between us, watching my father was a man who never admitted defeat. My mother waved a hand dismissively, and yet here he was, bracelet catching the light, offering me the one thing I had craved my entire life. The hotels are all booked, you know, I said softly. We told her months ago to make reservations, to beat you, Father. But she was too busy. I just wanted to be seen. She tilted her head. For a long time, he studied me. What does she call it again? Then he set the paper aside and extended his hand. A ripple of polite laughter spread among the relatives. His grip was firm, steady. If only they knew. Not controlling. Poor Emily. Not dominating. Meline chimed in. Cool. Her tone later dripping that day, with mock Meline sympathy. Came to my suite. She straightened the scarf around her neck. Not the kind of absent gesture that shouted superiority. For once, she wasn't playing hotelier while we enjoyed the presidential suite at Aspen Lodge. She was just herself. My father chuckled. I've been thinking, sipping his scotch said, like it was an extension of his authority. All these years, could have been part of the family business came from being admired. His from voice carrying just enough for everyone nearby to hear. Her voice instead of chasing you showed me what real worth looks like. That was what they had called it when I'd first turned away from the Henderson real estate empire. You don't need to be me. I was supposed to have joined them, or anyone else. Learned the trade. You just sat in boardrooms, shaken hands with developers. But I'd wanted something with tears. Something more human than land deals and contracts. I reached across, taking her hand in mine. The truth was far larger, time to find out. Daring. And this time, you won't have to do it alone. I'd hidden the truth of who I'd become. For the first time in years, while they scoffed at my hand consulting. And in that moment, building I realized none of them could have imagined on wasn't something I had to knock down. Not from inherited wealth, it was something she needed help strapping off of, and sheer determination. My mother was the hardest. Elite hotels. Her pride was a name iron. Whispered her now walls in hushed tones across boardrooms. For days she avoided me. London, Dubai, retreating into her routines, the world's most exclusive luxury her carefully polished smile, built from scratch. But one piece night, by piece, I found her alone in the chapel near the lodge that disguised my involvement. A small candlelit property I acquired was a brick. She was seated in the front pew. Her hands clasped tightly, her lips moving in silent reviewing plans. When she noticed me, to the vision I refused to let die. I suppose you're here to lecture me at midnight, she said bitterly. The final cornerstone I shook my head into place. No, my phone buzzed against my palm. We
The
sat in
soft
silence for a
vibration
long
grounding
while,
me amid the
the
glitter of the
candles
lodge.
flickering around
I
us.
glanced down.
Finally,
A
she
message
whispered,
from Mio,
I
my
don't know how
assistant.
to undo the
Acquisition
years.
of Aspen
I don't know
Lodge
how to say
complete.
I'm sorry without
Transfer
sounding like a
finalizes
coward.
at midnight.
I swallowed
My
the lump
lips
in my
curved
throat.
into the faintest
You don't
smile.
have to undo
Of
them,
course,
Mother.
my family didn't
You just
know.
have to start
To them,
today.
I was still the
Her
disappointment.
eyes glistened with
the
tears.
girl who
She
hadn't
couldn't
booked a
hide
room.
this time.
The sister
I was
destined
so
to spend
afraid.
Christmas in some
Afraid
budget
that if you
motel at
left
the edge
our
of
way of
town,
life,
you'd
I
leave
lifted
us
my
too.
eyes back
And
to the
maybe
room. My mother's
Maybe I
voice
pushed
cut
you
through
away
the air
before
again,
you had the chance.
sharp and dismissive.
For the first time in
At
my
least
life,
she's
I
employed.
wrapped my arms
Though
around
managing budget
She
hotels
stiffened at
is
first,
hardly a career.
then melted into
Meline
the
laughed,
embrace.
a soft,
It wasn't
cruel
perfect.
sound that prickled
It
against
wasn't
my skin.
complete.
She'll
But it was a
probably
beginning.
spend Christmas
When the
in one of her
holidays
little
ended
motels.
and the lodge emptied
That was
of guests,
the thing about my family.
I found myself
Their
walking
wealth
through the
wasn't
halls
enough.
alone.
They needed
Everywhere
to
I
define
looked,
themselves
I saw
by who they were
reminders.
better than.
Not of wealth,
And I had
not
been their
of power,
favorite
but of
target.
people.
Checked
The
my
staff
watch.
who worked
2
tirelessly.
minutes to midnight.
The guests who trusted
They were
us
still
to create
laughing when I
memories.
stepped forward
The
at
families
last.
who gathered
The
here
sound
year
of my
after
heels
year.
clicking
That's
against
when
the
the
marble
idea
like a
took
drumbeat.
root.
Conversations
Elite hotels
faltered,
wasn't just
heads
about
turned.
luxury.
And for
It
the
wasn't
first
just
time
about
that
gold
evening,
crests
silence
and marble
descended.
floors.
Actually,
Could be something
I said,
more, letting the word
something
linger in the
lasting.
charged air.
Called an emergency
I have accommodations
board meeting.
arranged.
Investors
Emily,
shuffled nervously.
My mother's head
no doubt
snapped up,
expecting me
her
to
face
announce
pinched
another
in surprise.
acquisition.
How
Instead,
did you
I
get in
surprised
here?
them.
I
We've
held her
built the
gaze,
world's most
steady,
exclusive
unshaken.
hotel chain.
I own
I
the
said,
building.
my voice steady.
The timing
But
couldn't
what if
have
we
been
built
better.
something even
Right
greater?
then, the lobby's
legacy
massive
of
television
compassion.
screens flickered.
I laid out my
the
vision.
breaking news
A
banner
foundation
blazing
funded
across
by
the bottom.
Elite Hotels.
Elite Hotels
dedicated
acquires
to
luxury
supporting
portfolio
underprivileged
in
youth
$8 billion
pursuing
careers
careers
in hospitality.
CEO Emily Henderson
training
expands
programs,
empire to over
scholarships,
100
mentorships,
properties worldwide.
Doors open for those
including
who had none.
Aspen Lodge.
Luxury should not
Gasps
just
rippled
serve
through
the
the
wealthy,
crowd.
I said.
My father's
It should
hand
create
stilled on his
opportunities
Scotch
for
glass.
those who serve it.
Meline
The
champagne
board was
flute
stunned.
slipped from her fingers.
Some resisted at
shattering
first,
against the marble
profit
with a
margins,
sound that
brand
seemed to
image
echo
risks.
in the stunned
But I
silence.
stood firm.
I lifted
And
my phone to
slowly,
my
they
ear.
began to see what I
Margaret,
saw.
I said to my
Because
assistant,
true
my
legacy
voice
wasn't
deliberately
in the
calm.
buildings we owned.
Please cancel the
It was in
Henderson
the lives
family's
we touched.
presidential suite
Months
access.
later, spring melted the
Effective
snow.
immediately.
And Aspen
That's
Lodge
impossible,
returned to its
my
quiet
mother
rhythm.
sputtered, her
But
cheeks
for me,
flushing
something
red.
had shifted
This
forever.
is the most exclusive
Christmas,
resort in
my
Aspen.
family had been
You
forced
might want
to
to check
confront
the
their
ownership
arrogance.
transfer.
I had been
I
forced to
suggested
confront my
mildly.
pride.
As of midnight,
And somewhere in the
Elite
middle of all
Hotels
that pain
owns
and
this
humiliation,
property.
we
In
found
fact,
something
we own
neither of
every
us
luxury
expected.
hotel in
Humility.
Aspen.
Elite
Forgiveness,
Hotels.
love. My
On the
father
last
whispered.
evening of my stay,
The weight of recognition
we gathered once
sinking in.
more in the grand
The chain
dining
that's
hall.
revolutionizing
No reporters,
luxury
no
hospitality.
headlines, no cameras.
My little
Just us.
hospitality
My father
consulting
raised
project.
his glass.
I confirmed.
To Emily,
Though I suppose
the daughter
managing
who taught
budget
us all a
hotels
lesson
isn't
in
as
humility.
impressive as real
My
estate
mother added
development.
softly.
The screens
And in
now
love,
displayed a photo of
Meline
me,
smiled
flanked
through
by
tears.
Elite Hotels'
And in
iconic gold
courage,
crest.
I lifted
As
my glass,
reporters
my
announced the
voice
historic
breaking.
acquisition.
To family,
Around me,
not the one we
whispers filled the
pretend to
room.
be,
Henderson's
but the one we
daughter,
are,
CEO of
flawed,
Elite,
fragile,
an $8
still
billion
healing,
empire.
but together.
Meline
We drank,
frantically
and for the
pulled
first
out
time
her
in my
phone,
life I felt
scrolling
it.
through the
Belonging.
headlines. Years
Her
from
face
now,
drained of
people
color
will
as she
remember
read.
the night the
World's
Henderson
youngest
family
female
fell and
hotelier
Emily
to build
built
$8
$8
billion
billion empire
They'll remember
in
the
secrecy.
headlines. The
My
$8
mother
billion
clutched her
empire.
pearls.
The empire
Your
built in
budget
secrecy.
hotels.
But I hope
We're
they
just a
remember more
cover,
than that.
I said softly.
I hope they remember
A
the
very
foundation that
profitable
gave
cover.
thousands of young
While you were
dreamers
mocking
a
my
chance
career
to rise.
choice,
I
was
hope they
building the
remember
most
the moment
successful
a broken
luxury
family
hotel
found
chain
the
in the
courage
world.
to heal. The
And
cameras
I
in the
hope they
lobby
remember
captured
that
every
success,
word, no matter
flashing
how
my
dazzling,
face across
means
the globe
nothing
as
without
breaking
humility.
news.
Guests
Because at the
turned
end
to
of the
me
day,
with
wealth
newfound
fades.
awe.
Power
For once,
shifts,
I wasn't the
empires
black
crumble.
sheep. I
But
was the
love,
queen, the kind
I let
built
the
on
silence
forgiveness,
stretch,
compassion,
savoring
and
the
second
shift in the room.
chances. The
That
sudden
is the only
reversal
true
of power,
legacy worth
the
leaving
dawning
behind.
realization,
And
etched
that is the
across my
legacy I
family's
choose.
faces. And then, with a final, measured smile, I spoke. Unfortunately, we have a strict policy at Elite Hotels. Guests who treat hospitality workers as beneath them are not welcome. Consider your suite cancelled.